Oh, well, hello there. How you doing, guys? Welcome back to Rule of Two Review. And can you believe that we are sitting here on Thursday, day 3 of E3 2016, the last day of E3 2016? Interesting because E3 feels like it's getting longer and longer every year. This year we had Electronic Arts create this brand new EA Play event where they kind of opted out of appearing at E3, hosting their own kind of press conference. In favor of their own convention. That started on Sunday the 12th and ran for a couple of days until the actual E3 show floor and press conferences started, and that's gone all week until today. It's been a whirlwind of a lot of mostly awesome stuff. You've probably seen most of my videos recapping kind of what's been happening so far this week, so you know that I'm actually a huge fan of pretty much everything being shown. I am so fantastically happy with and thrilled with E3 this year. All the companies, for the most part, bring it. A couple of missteps, as usually tends to be. But we've also had some of the most exciting moments of E3 in the last probably 10 years. It's really been freaking awesome. So I wanted to really quickly. I've been, I took the week off. I've been watching E3 like crazy, gaming like crazy, and making videos and doing podcasts. I've just been like nonstop talking for days, it feels like. So I keep fumbling over my dumb words because I'm a silly person. So anyway, I wanted to really quickly go over kind of each press conference. I don't really want to talk about games and kind of what people had outside of their press conferences or their online presentation, which for Nintendo does include their whole Treehouse, which streams for a couple of days. I just wanted to discuss basically what we saw on stage / presented to us from these developers themselves and console manufacturers. So we're going to start with the first one we saw, which is EA. And yes, I made a video talking about it, which focused primarily on my complete and utter disappointment in their lack of Star Wars content and how I feel like they really screwed up not having stuff to show. Now, I will maintain that I do believe that what they're making in terms of Star Wars games are going to be great. Very excited for what they're doing. So it's not like the content or the projects that bother me. It's the fact that they couldn't have anything ready to show for E3 this year. It's been a couple of years now. You've had Battlefront out for almost a year. Let's get to it, you guys. Come on, EA. You got to kind of fix that stuff and give that to those of us who are waiting for it. But, regardless of that, if I look at their whole presentation, their whole conference, I didn't grade it in my previous video. You should still go and look at it and watch it if you want to hear me mostly rant about Star Wars and talk about what should be happening with Star Wars. As a whole, there were some things that I did like. Titanfall was very exciting. Mass Effect looked fantastic. The bits of gameplay they showed us, so freaking excited for that. They did a lot of sports stuff as they typically do. We kind of need to expect that. Battlefield 1, although I don't know if I'm ever going to play it, I admit looks very great. People are excited. So I appreciate what they're doing there. But they did no gameplay demonstrations. They were like the trailer show. It's all they did is show trailers. So even though I'm very excited for a couple of games, I know there's another big one I'm forgetting that they showed on stage. Fee looked good. What was it? Titanfall, Mass Effect, Star Wars they dropped the ball on. Fee looks good. I think there's another one I'm missing that did look good. Regardless, their whole presentation was not memorable to me, mostly because of Star Wars. But they have some games I'm excited for and will play, but their presentation was boring. They screwed up Star Wars. So if I was going to grade them, I'm going to go with a flat C. I was toying with a C-, but I can't do that because they do still have some games I'm excited to play, and I still think they're making great Star Wars games even though they didn't have it to show. So I'm going to give them that one thing. I'm going to give them a solid C. Not a very exciting conference. The pacing wasn't all that great. They had no gameplay demonstrations, all trailers, no Star Wars. Some games that look great, so we're going to go with the C. Moving on to Bethesda, which I have yet to talk about. I think Bethesda's show is pretty good. What's weird is they did show a lot of content for stuff that already exists. New content coming to things like Doom and whatnot. Elder Scrolls Online. And, that's cool. That it's some great value and great stuff they're doing there. Lots of free DLC, some very worthwhile paid DLC for a lot of their games. I think that's cool. A lot of Fallout stuff. I'm a huge Fallout fan. I'm a huge Elder Scrolls fan. And I worship the ground Doom walks on. If you guys have not played Doom 4, which, again, I'm going to call it Doom 4, you got to play it. It's so good. It's so good, Doom. Better than it has any right to be. So what they're doing there is cool, but they did talk about stuff that already exists. So that's not super exciting. They showed a new Quake coming. Holy crap. So excited. Very, very cool to have a new Quake. Oh my gosh, what else did they show? They had another couple good things. Anyway, They had some great games. They closed with Dishonored 2 and an amazing gameplay demonstration of Dishonored 2. Extremely excited for that. I thought that looked absolutely wonderful. My girlfriend and I were just like gawking at how great that game looks. Visually, it looks very good, but it's also just a story. You got two different characters you can play through. How they're expanding on, your unique abilities and items, and the stealth, the violent mechanic from the first one looks great. I love the new world, and I'm just super excited. So even though I should have put notes together. I thought I'd be able to remember some of the other games other than, DLC for the old games. And then they opened with Quake. And then they did Dishonored. I know there's something else in there. Anyway, I remembered thinking overall their show was okay. So I'm going to give Bethesda a B-, because Dishonored probably stole the show. I mean, they actually did a gameplay demonstration. So finally we had something where they were showing real gameplay, not just CG trailers. And I just feel, they brought back Prey. Thank God I remembered at least one more thing they did. They showed awesome stuff for Prey. And that's a game that has a crazy development cycle, Prey 2, which now looks like it's just Prey, maybe a reboot. Really crazy story what that game has gone through, but the fact that it came back and they're actually working on it and it's going to be releasing hopefully sometime soon, great news. That was also very exciting, hence why I liked it. And probably other stuff I'm not remembering. But yeah, I'm going to give them a B- because Dishonored 2 looked great and everything else, not so exciting except for Prey, but it was good stuff. So, it was a fun press conference. Their second year. They don't have as much going on a regular basis as other companies yet. So I think, it's their second conference. You got to give them time to build up, the kind of stature to do longer stuff with newer announcements. So overall, I thought it was pretty good. Let's get to Microsoft, which I talked about at length on my Sony Microsoft video. And as I said, I thought Microsoft was really, really great. I recapped what they did. Gears of War 4, Halo Wars 2, We Happy Few, some indie stuff, Xbox One S, Xbox Project Scorpio, and just a bunch of other games. They showed a lot of games. Scalebound was there, Final Fantasy was there, and it all looked great. I mean, honestly, the pacing was pretty good. They didn't waste our time with too much stuff that wasn't interesting. Most of the games were great. Lots of gameplay demonstration. Tekken 7 was announced. That's another big one. Great stuff from Microsoft. I mean, it wasn't the oh shit, oh my god show, but it was that looks good. That looks good. That looks good show. And that's in a lot of ways all you have to do. They showed Recore gameplay in a quick trailer. Very excited for that. So, if I'm going to grade Microsoft based on what I discussed on that video, and just kind of what they did, I'm going to give them a strong B+. I would like to go into that next level, but I can't quite do it, mostly because of what the competition did. So I'm going to give them a B+, and again, a very, very strong B+, maybe a B++ if that's possible. I'm going to make up a B++, because it was like better than a B+, but not quite an A status, A- kind of status thing. But kudos to Microsoft, man. They got a lot of people talking. Even talking about things like the One S and the Scorpio is a pretty big deal. I don't know that I agree with what they're doing, but it creates a huge conversation and shows that Microsoft is trying to be forward-thinking. Whether or not they succeed is not what we're talking about. It's the fact that they're trying to do it. The same stuff that I always laud Nintendo for doing, even when they fail. The fact that they try things, I think counts, and it becomes a conversation starter. So Microsoft gets a lot of kudos and credit there. I love their show. I enjoyed what they did, and I feel great about owning an Xbox One, and I'm excited for the future of that console. So let's move on to Ubisoft, which I have not talked about yet. Ubisoft, also pretty good, They showed, I don't know, like Watch Dogs 2 looks awesome. I don't care how controversial it sounds or how dumb everyone thinks it looks. I enjoyed the first one for what it was. I'm very excited for the sequel. I love how they're improving. I love that it's in San Francisco. I love the new character. I love the parkour running, the in-depth hacking as opposed to just press this button hacking from the first game. I think that Watch Dogs 2 looks great. Ghost Recon, I don't care about it, but I admit that the gameplay demonstration they showed was very cool and exciting. And again, by the way, another company that showed a lot of gameplay. It was only those first two guys, EA and Bethesda, who mostly focused on trailers and CG cutscenes and stuff. Bethesda finally hit gameplay with Dishonored, but up until then, those guys didn't really do that. Microsoft, Ubisoft, and everyone else, gameplay galore, and thank you so much. That's just so exciting. That's what we want to see, and it makes these games feel real. So, yeah, they showed that stuff. They talked about The Division a little bit. They closed with a game that I think is not getting enough attention, and that's this game called Steep, which is an open-world, explorative, winter sports, extreme sports game. And you may or may not know, I'm from Denver. I'm from the Rockies. I am a hardcore snowboarder. My girlfriend's a hardcore skier. So that game is definitely not going to be for everybody the way like, oh, a big Call of Duty or a Ghost Recon or another brown military shooter is going to be for so many of today's gamers. That game like speaks to that specific audience, and I'm that audience because that's what I do in real life. And I love games like that. And I have to say, Ubisoft deserves huge credit for this. No one's really talking about it, but I'm going to give them this credit. They had the balls to close with a game like Steep. That was their closing game with great gameplay demonstration. You guys, this is the day and age where everyone's closing with the zombie apocalypse games and the Call of Duty games and the big brown shooters and stuff like that. Even a game like Dishonored, it's another gory, mature, killing your enemies kind of game. Stuff that I love. But it's obvious. Like, it doesn't surprise anyone anymore. It's like, oh, that's going to be the big closer, you know? And Ubisoft, who actually makes a lot of games like that, chose to close with something way fresher and way more unique. Something we don't see enough of. I mean, it's not the first extreme winter sports game for sure, but it's a new take on the idea, and we haven't really seen one with such a huge budget and a huge focus until now, especially this generation we haven't. And, you know, maybe my snowboarding fanboyish, if you want to call it my fanboy perspective, I am biased because I snowboard in real life, but I don't care. That game looks so cool, and Ubisoft, I think they took a huge gamble in closing with a game like that and not closing with the Ghost Recon gameplay, which would have been the easy thing to do. So way to go, Ubisoft, you surprised me. Also, they are the only company to have mentioned the Nintendo NX on stage. Yes, it was only for Just Dance, but you know what? Who cares? It's just interesting that they brought it up. I think it's very cool that they had the ability to say, and this game's coming to the NX. Yes, we'd like the Watch Dogs 2 and the Ghost Recons and Rainbow Sixes of the world to come to that, and maybe it will. For now, they're only comfortable and allowed to say Just Dance. That's fine. I just like that they actually brought it up on stage. Also, Aisha Tyler, this was the least annoying she's ever been. Like, I like her. I've always liked her, but sometimes she's too much and feels like she's trying too hard. This year, she was, like, calm, quiet, reserved, just laid back, having conversations, very normal and natural with people. Trey Parker and Matt Stone came on, by the way, hometown heroes from Denver, to talk about the new South Park. That was very cool. So, all in all, Ubisoft absolutely surprised me. Typically, I'm like, I don't know how it's going to go. And, They did it right. I'm very pleased with what they did. They did spend time on the movie stuff, and I think that was too bad, but whatever. So I'm going to also give Ubisoft a very strong B+, because, again, I love that they closed with a gutsy move with that game Steep as opposed to something easy. I think that was really cool. They could have shown the new Assassin's Creed game for next year or something if they wanted. They didn't do that. They didn't close with Watch Dogs. They didn't close with Ghost Recon. They closed with a winter sports game. Awesome. Thank you so much. Ubisoft did a good job. B+. And, yeah, so Sony, you've heard me talk about Sony. I'm going to make this quick. Sony blew my balls off, you guys. They impressed me so much. The pacing of their show, the live orchestra, they revealed God of War. Oh my freaking God, looks so fantastic. Days Gone looks great. Death Stranding with Hideo Kojima, Norman Reedus, so freaking good. Call of Duty looked good. Too much VR stuff, definitely my big negative there. And of course, amongst other things, they had my geek out moment, which I talked about, Resident Evil 7. Even though I'm still not sure about the direction yet, when I just think about, hey, Resident Evil's continuing, part 7 is what we saw. Holy cow, I shat my pants, I screamed, I made my girlfriend deaf, and I'm so happy to have seen that. So Sony, you know, the quick version of Sony's summary, I loved it. It's not the best conference ever, like some people want to say, but it's definitely in the conversation of the top 2 or 3. So A+, you know, A+ for Sony's conference, man. And I just was so surprised. I didn't expect it, you guys. Like, and you know, I'm not the Sony biased guy. Like, I like my PlayStation. I like Sony a lot. If anything, it's usually the Nintendo bias you'd probably expect me to have. So when I give Sony an A+, I really mean it. They surprised me, and they deserve credit for doing what they did. Not much boring talking, no bullshit about Powers TV shows or download numbers this or PlayStation Now that. None of that shit. It was like, game. And they're all awesome, except for the VR window of games. Everything else was awesome. VR we can shoot it to the moon. I could care less about VR. So everything else was great. A+ Sony, great job. And now I'm going to wrap up with Nintendo, which, of course, I did talk about my initial impressions with their reveal of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Amazing gameplay trailer. Amazing gameplay. Nintendo Treehouse streaming. So much stuff. It is spectacular. Now, Nintendo's tricky. I'm not going to actually grade Nintendo, you guys, because we all know the story, how they didn't actually have a digital event or a press conference. They just did the Treehouse. They only had Zelda playable on the show floor. And all the rest of the actual Treehouse stuff was mostly 3DS and Pokemon stuff, which is cool and important, and I saw some things that I like. No big surprises except for the one new IP, Ever Oasis, which is not very exciting to me for the 3DS, but it's probably going to be very good and sell well. And they did show Paper Mario, which was very cool that they decided to do that. Proved me wrong by confirming it's a Wii U release. So that's pretty cool. And it does look good, by the way. I'm very excited for Paper Mario. But the fact that they didn't they could have put this together, you guys, in even like the digital event package and then just did the Treehouse streaming with a bunch of Zelda and Pokemon. You know, they could have had a 30 or 40 minute thing. I think that we should have had, we should have seen Reggie and or Miyamoto or Bill Trinen or whoever actually address the gaming audience and the E3 public. I think that was important. And although I loved what they showed and Zelda blew the world away, deservedly so, I have to acknowledge that at the end of the day, I think they should have still done something more E3 appropriate. Just the 2-minute intro from Reggie, which was cool, but just his 2-minute intro, and then that was it, and then it was just Treehouse stuff for the rest of the couple days. The Treehouse was good, but it's not the same as actually addressing E3 as the convention that it is, and as the important week that it is. So I have to say I'm disappointed by that. Also, I talked about this on the podcast. They opened with the amazing Zelda trailer, and then they went right into 30 minutes of Pokemon, including the first 10 minutes of just interviews with developers who don't speak English where they had to interpret. And I said this many times, it ground the momentum to a halt. And that's a huge negative to me. Not because of Pokemon, and not because those developers don't deserve the right to speak, because they absolutely do. They are legendary. I want them to talk about who they are and what they do and their motivations for this game. But to make that the first 15 minutes, the first thing you do after teasing the world with that Zelda trailer. Ouch. Not cool, Nintendo. That was not cool. Granted, once we moved on and Zelda came back, yes, it made everything better again. I absolutely agree. And Pokemon looks great for fans. Terrell, who's on the podcast, a big Pokemon fan, very excited for what he saw. So it seems like Sun and Moon are going to be the hits that we want them to be. That is great. But at the end of the day, you guys, I can't give Nintendo a pass for not actually bringing it to E3 the way I think that they still could have, even if they didn't want to show the NX. They could have took every game that they had, Zelda, Pokemon, Ever Oasis, Monster Hunter, Paper Mario, and a couple other ones that I can't even probably think of, mostly 3DS stuff, sure. They could have taken that stuff and made a 30, 35-minute Nintendo E3 Direct presentation out of it. And as silly as that sounds, for me, that would have made a difference. And it would have been showed that Nintendo was trying in the right way. You don't have to show the NX, you don't have to give us launch games or anything else, but you could have done something more than that. To me, the Treehouse is best served as a complement to an E3 presentation. That's what made the Treehouse so great the last 2 years. Even last year with that horrible presentation, the Treehouse still helped after the fact, because then we got to actually see a lot of these games, the good and the bad ones. And that is why I think that last year, while it was bad, it's different than this year because they still brought it and they came like they were trying. Even if they failed, they tried. This year didn't feel that way. So anyway, I'm getting long in the tooth on this subject. The point is I can't give them a pass for not doing it the right way, but I also can't grade them because all they did was the Treehouse. All I will say is the Treehouse was awesome. Zelda is the best thing I've seen in the last 30 years of my life. I cannot believe how great Breath of the Wild is. It far exceeded my already very high expectations. And for the most part, the industry, the media, and the gamers and the internet agree. Everyone is loving that game. So Nintendo obviously did a bunch of the right things as well. So Nintendo did great. I loved seeing them here. Zelda made everything okay. No press conference or digital event means I'm just not going to give them a grade. That's my personal opinion, my personal preference. And remember, I'm the Zelda fanboy, and so I could be saying, "Oh, A+ just because of Zelda, A++, it's the best." I can't in good conscience do that because I think Nintendo could have done more than they chose to do, and I'm disappointed they didn't. So all in all, in wrapping this up, E3 2016, even with no digital conference from Nintendo, the fact that everything else they did still was very good, and all the other conferences had a lot of good to it, EA's being the worst, but there was still a couple of great games even in that press conference. This has been one of the best E3s in recent memories, you guys, and I did not expect that. As I said in one of my E3 videos this week, this felt like the E3 that this generation really, really needed. It showed a bunch of gameplay. It had a bunch of exclusive titles for the consoles. It had a bunch of surprises. It had some sequels. It had some new IPs. It had some new IPs. And the main companies that had the most to show, they showed gameplay. This wasn't the CG trailer show like it'd been the last couple of years. They did a ton of on-stage gameplay demonstrations. And I think that counts for so much. And Ubisoft closing with a game like Steep and stuff like that. These things are huge to me. So I'm going to say that this is, I don't know. My favorite E3 has always been 2004, which is the one that I attended, just saying. But it was also great because of just so many things. Twilight Princess reveal was there. Halo 2, Resident Evil 4, Metroid Prime 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, Gran Turismo, something or other, the first God of War. So many great things there. Star Fox Assault. That's probably still my favorite. This is going to be like the second or third best E3 conference almost ever because everyone brought it. Even with Nintendo not bringing it, they still brought it somehow. They still managed to be amazing. So this E3 was fantastic. This was the E3 of gameplay. This is helping this generation feel less awkward and less without its identity than it had leading up to this year. So I have to say that this E3 has been awesome. So that's it. I think I'm just going to wrap this up, you guys. Those are my thoughts, my grades for the conferences and shows. Everyone did great. So many things to be excited for. This generation feels real and important now more than ever. And it's probably really going to kick into serious gear in a couple of months when Nintendo finally shows the NX and talks about what they're doing. And then we get their games to come out for the next couple of years, next generation style. So that's that. E3 2016, what a ride it's been. I took the week off to be able to make videos for you guys. I actually have a couple of more I'm going to be making over the next couple days too, so don't think that this is like the end of E3 stuff. But that's my summary and my thoughts. What do you guys think? Did you like E3 this year as much as I did? Do you think it was maybe not as exciting as I wanted? Do you think Nintendo did better or worse than I thought? What do you think about my grades for the other conferences? Talk about all this stuff below. Hopefully you've loved this week as much as I have, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Look forward to a couple more E3 videos in the next couple of days. This, of course, is Rob of Rule of Two Review. I'll catch you guys next time on another video.